We're going to move on to the fun stuff. Mark always entertaining at what he has to offer in his recap. So, Mark Nelsen, this, by the way, I just recycled last year's and added 1 year to all your numbers. All right, Mark says that as a weather geek like him, you just want to find out about last winter and what's coming up this year. That's how he's been open. So he'll keep his bio brief. Mark was born in Hood River 54 years ago, raised in Mount Angel and Chehalis. He then headed to the big city of Seattle for an atmospheric science degree at the University of Washington. Mark started working at the best TV station in Portland, Coint TV. I might have added the best station in Portland. The most accurate 8 years in a row, by the way.
You pay for that.
Yeah. I disagree, and I've got the people here that can back me up on that.
What else is more accurate? February 22nd.
Exactly. Okay, so yes, Mark started 30 years ago, right? 1993 at Coin, and spent 7 years there before taking the chief meteorologist job at KPTV for the past 23 years. Mark is lucky, he's a lucky weather geek that gets paid to look at weather maps and models, and he still likes his job after a generation of work. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Nelsen.
Generation, that makes me really old. I remember when I was young and we started this. Yeah, when we had the weather service, it was like 8 people. Yeah, he was right, 6 or 8 people. So I don't have chemtrails. I do have some global warming though. Did I actually go here? Which one is mine? I can't do 2 things at once.
Mark's 100 megabyte PowerPoint.
Yeah. Steve said this one is always much larger than the others. Oh, that's Tannis.
You gave it away.
Is this it? There we go. You know what's funny about the chemtrails? I used to have, this thing is so short. I used to get people email me, or nobody calls anymore really, but email about the chemtrails, like, oh, you're covered up. And it's interesting because even if I poke the bear on air and say, these are contrails, they're perfectly natural, they're artificial, from planes, but it's nothing nefarious. And nobody ever texts or nobody ever emails me anymore because I think everybody's gone to their own little, their own little views. It's like I'm part of the establishment now, so they don't trust me. I'm so loud. Okay, so yearly weather recap. So mostly winter. We got some summer though too, because nowadays a lot of people are very interested in what happens in the summers as well. So we got some ice, lots of snow, and some blazing heat. So let's do the winter first, 22-23. I would say it was a typical La Nina winter. All right, we got to go through like 80 slides here, so we keep it moving. So just general thoughts, other than Christmas freezing rain and late February snowstorm, nothing really all that memorable sticks out. Like if I asked you what happened last winter, and this is the reason we didn't used to do a winter recap. We used to just jump right into the forecast. And then I remember sitting there like in the chairs going, I don't remember what happened last winter. So that's going to be the recap. But yeah, so maybe those things stick out for you. It was the 8th consecutive winter with measurable snow PDX. If I'm correct, that has not occurred at the airport location since 1940 when the weather record started. PDX finally dropped below 20, first time in 5 winters. And we're still waiting for a regional Arctic blast. 9th consecutive winter without a widespread Arctic outbreak. And I'll define that a little bit better coming up. And I know Tannis, where are you over there? Yes, and you get into that too, I bet.
That's one of the statistics.
Yeah, okay. So last one was December 2013. So official snow total 11.0 inches at the Weather Service. I mean, that's a healthy snow winter, right? 7.8 inches in downtown. KGW keeps records as well. Some pre-Christmas ice skating there on the streets of Silverton. Merry Christmas. This is how it breaks down. So a little bit we had got exciting, and the newsies got really excited, I'm sure. December 4th. December 22nd, we had 0.1 inch. As I recall, we had a little bit like in the West Hills these days. And then February 22nd was the biggie. All right, a little weather quiz for you. And there's a point to this. In which month did Steve Pierce's home, he lives up in Salmon Creek, God's country, he says. In which event did he get the most snow in one day? Was it that big January 27th surprise snowstorm? I mean, the amount was a surprise. We did forecast snow that day. February 2021, remember the big ice storm in the valley in the South Metro? Or did Steve get the most this last February? And how does that differ from official PDX ops? Anybody have any idea which one up in Salmon Creek was the most? Just yell it out.
27.
See? Hey, Steve, you know. Well, but PDX it is not. I'm sorry. The Weather Service official record since 1996 are taken when the Weather Service moved out to Park Roads. That's where the official snow records are. So, yeah, 2017 isn't even in there. But yet, number 2 was the February 22nd snowstorm this last winter, because in no one snowstorm do we all get the same amount of snow in the metro area. In that one, Steve, didn't you have like 14 inches in 2017?
Yes.
Yeah, that one PDX had 8 inches, so that one went right up through the middle of the metro area. So each snowstorm is different here. I mean, it's different geographically. I remember I got home that night, 2017 had 4 inches. So but I made up for it this year. All right, so winter temperature anomaly, big picture, warmer than normal, cooler than normal. We were about average for the winter, maybe slightly cool. As for rain, we were slightly drier than average for December, January, and February. October, so let's go through the months. October, remember last October? Crazy warm. Was it 6 days out above 80? Or no, it was 12. Well, never seen that before. I think the old record was 6. So warmest October on record for most of Western Oregon, much of Washington. November then, man, suddenly it got chilly last November. So that was quite a change in just 1 month. December was average, slightly below, somewhere in there. January, average, a little above average maybe. February, a little below average. All right, here we go. Lots of charts here, folks. Remember later on, if you're a hardcore geek like me, later on when you're having your afternoon drink or your morning coffee tomorrow, well, I guess we won't have it out that quickly. Eventually, in about a week at least, we'll be able to look at these, and you can look at it more closely. 100 years of weather records, Oregon Climate Division 2, so these are the lower elevations, this I-5 corridor. And you can see the last 2 really cold winters, 92, 93. That was a fun one, and very similar, 16 and 17. And so this last winter was the coolest in 4 years since that really cold one in 16 and 17. So it was a cooler than average winter. If you look at all of Oregon, this is all of Oregon going back 100 years. There's a slow warming trend. There's definitely not a huge ramp up like we're seeing in the summertime, which is interesting. But it is slowly warming. Look at these pretty TV graphics. We like to do that. Lots of colors. Well, actually, you can have too many colors. But November 2022, the high temperatures, you see the below average days. It was our coolest November in 2020, in 22 years, in 2022. But longest November dry spell in the middle of that. That was really nice, kind of that crisp weather we're having now, same sort of thing. But we made up for it in rain at the beginning. In the end, it was pretty close to normal. Now, this was great for skiing and snowboarding because look at that, by November 30th, there was 55 inches of snow on the ground at the official Snowtell site, the Mount Hood test site. It's at the bottom of the Poochie lift at Timberline Lodge, because we had that cool and wet weather at the end of the month. In fact, that was our best start to the ski season in quite a few years. Look at 2021. Okay. Oh yeah, 500 millibar heights. Gotta have that. So we've got higher than normal heights. Those are the warm colors in the Eastern Pacific. So ridging more than normal. So December then, it was a cool month. The weather turned a lot more active in December. It was 2.5 degrees below normal. And you know what sticks out there is those 3 days, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. By the way, we do a winter recap. The whole meeting in every March is our winter recap. So this is actually a trimmed down version of that, plus I added in the summer graphic. So this is a briefer version of that winter recap from last March. Look at that same, you have the, can you see my cursor? I don't have a cursor. Oh, it's connected. Oh, old style. Okay, that's not very well. You see my cursor? Yeah. So we did ridging off to the west. That's in December. Oh, look at it. We got a coin graphic. Isn't that seaside is for fun? 34
You stole
degrees.
that.
What?
You stole that.
I did. And somebody asked me years ago, like, do you like go in like this time of year in October? Do I go find all that stuff? No. I have a file. In fact, I've already got an extras file going, and I just drag and drop stuff in. You know, when I'm sitting at work during the slow weather, like, oh, I got to grab that stuff off of our export directory. And you know, Steve Pierce has a graphic, or somebody I got to grab that as well. December, near average month, but it was very cold. It was a little cooler than average, but very cold for 3 days. Look how that sticks out. Each bar is the high and low temp each day, and this is from the Weather Service website. You can find this, and you see the average low, the average high. Look how it drops down here as that really cold air came in. So December 21st, this was, of course I covered up. I don't know. This must have been like within 12 hours of the forecast. But cold upper level trough drops into the Rockies, and kind of what I call a glancing blow of cold air, where it doesn't push straight south into the Pacific Northwest. In fact, this is why I say we don't call this an Arctic blast. Yes, it feels like that at ground level, but the 850 millibar temps, the real cold air stays east of the Cascades. In a real Arctic blast, you'd see these -12s and below way down here. It'd be just it just descends right on both sides of the Cascades. This was a shallow cold air mass. In fact, the morning of Thursday, December 22nd, the kids are getting excited. Christmas is almost here. East wind is just screaming through the metro area. It's 22 degrees. That's not like a cold, clear, calm night. That was like the temperature of the air mass pouring through the gorge. It was 12 in Hood River. Is a deep enough air mass that look at Bend and Government Camp in the single digits. So it was sloshing up over the Cascades. All right, so that's the morning of the 22nd. That was the day, I'm sorry, that was the day the Vista House wind sensor died. 12:45 p.m. It's there. Oh, that looks comfortable up in Corbett. It's 13 degrees and the wind chill is 9 below zero. And the wind is gusting to 78. And actually, I think at that point it was probably gusting higher than that because you could see it was just like, I think it was flopping around at that point. And wait, is Matt here? Matt Sloan?
No, he texted this morning.
What did he say about it?
He said he has an update on it, and it is getting put back up.
Yeah, yeah. So Matt Sloan is working on a tougher arm, I think, that extends out from Vista House, so it can handle that. That's the problem. Is the sensor itself keeps working, the anemometer, but it bounces and eventually over. You know, if it does that for 7 days straight, it's just getting ripped up. So we haven't had a Vista House wind sensor since that storm. Yeah, but there's a sensor there at Corbett. Look at the gust to 88. That's at the Corbett School. Temperature 14. That was the next morning as the ice storm had kind of started. And my friend had there was a bunch of roof damage out there. It's too strong, even for that area. So pretty extreme. So Vista House was, I'm sure, well over 100 at that point, but it didn't matter because nobody was there and there was no sensor. All right, so we got kind of lucky with that ice event because the precipitation was not very heavy the next 3 days. Remember, it was kind of light. The first kind of wave came in. And, it was more, that's the other thing, it was more ice pellets than rain. Huge difference. I had a lot of ice pellets at home, but if that all would have been glazed ice that hung on the trees and power lines, that would have been far more damaging. So if we can get a lot of it in the form of ice pellets, and it's like, it's not even fun to sled on, I suppose, but yeah. Okay, so 2 bits of forecasting advice for if there happen to be younger forecasters here. One is, there's no major change to the low-level air mass until the wind switches to southerly. This was at 4 p.m. Saturday, Christmas Eve. It was still 34 PDX, yet the South Metro was in the 50s. Salem was in the 50s. Yeah, Christmas Eve, this is Saturday evening. And models had said the day before it would be warming up. So they were like a day and a half, 2 days off. So that's just something you just learn over time. And models are getting better. I noticed like our graph model was a little better. It was trying to keep it colder, I think, if I recall correctly. It was trying. But yeah, until the wind switches at any one location, and it's always going to happen south and west metro first, and sometimes it hops over and Vancouver warms up too, but right along the river stays cold. Don't dramatically warm up those temperatures no matter what models say, but they're getting better. One day they'll get it. And then we had 4 inches of rain the next 4 days, Christmas Eve to the 27th, which led to an issue. Suddenly we had a strong south wind after everything was saturated. And we had a windstorm 2 days after Christmas, the 27th. I don't remember where. Oh, was this on the coast?
Yes.
Thank you. Look at that tight pack in those icy bumpers. Isn't that pretty? 975 millibar surface low just offshore. Actually, in the end, I think it was a closed low because, oh yeah, look at that. A little closed low. There's Astoria. It came right through there. And I had a day off, but it was Christmas, nobody was home. But Jeff was working, right? You were working that morning? 978 millibar surface low, and this was the 9-hour forecast, so it probably was a closed low right through there. And that position, if that low would have been significantly deeper, that Storm King storm in the 1880s, which may have been as greater than the Columbus Day storm for parts of the metro and valley, I think George Miller, he's passed on, but I think he, in his write-up, or maybe it's Wolf Reed, thinks maybe it was like a 958 low that passed through about the same location. 958 millibars or 960 millibars. Anyway, that's perfect for a big windstorm. Now, of course, the low wasn't that deep, and I think it was weakening. It was beginning to fill. But you can see what would happen is it passes just north of us and goes into south central Washington. Huge surge of wind through the gorge, damaging there. And just some gradients. Can't go wrong with some gradients. But yet the peak winds here in the metro, yeah, caused damage, but it was in the 45 to 55 range generally. A few high spots, a little bit higher. Valley 55, 56 in Scotts Mills, a little minus 59. Oh, I don't know if that was up on a hill or not. Look at those winds in Swell City, appropriately named, 68 mile per hour gust, 50s there. So about 116 PGE customers were out that day, and some were out for 3 days. You see how that compares to previous storms. You should have a graphic for everything, and a spreadsheet for everything in our climate. All right. January. So then January arrives, weak ridging across western Canada. There was a deep trough and gesturing to the south. That's when California was getting nailed. And mild westerly flow. You see some days above average, some below. 6th consecutive mild January. Right? Rain, rain, rain. And a little below average in the end. Snowpack good on January 1st, percent of average. Yeah, looks okay, pretty good, La Nina year. We did have one interesting event. There was a bomb cyclone. Media loves bomb cyclone now, don't they? Can't say bomb cyclone too many times. And so there's one offshore like that. This would be forecast tip number 2 coming up. And see how there's that huge gradient across the Cascades. But it's not a closed area of high pressure on the maps like we see when we have long cold spells here. When that happens, you get a widespread downslope easterly wind coming off the mountains, and it's not much stronger in the gorge in the whole metro. I mean, basically all that wind is spreading out across the whole metro area. So then look at the gust at 51 at PDX yet compared to what happened when it was light at PDX back in the big easterly wind or the ice storm. West end of the gorge was 70, which is no big deal really for them. So yeah, when you get the big downslope stuff, look at that. Watch for this. North Bend to Spokane gradient, that's huge, 25 millibars from eastern Washington to southwest Oregon. That's when everybody gets the wind. But there's still a huge gradient through the gorge, but it's going to spread out all over and everybody gets damaging wind. And often PDX, Vancouver, right around the Columbia River coming down off the South Washington Cascades gets nailed the hardest. All right, then models were forecasting a big cold spell right at the end of January. In the end, the coldest air mass of the season overhead at 850 millibars, 5,000 feet, was on the 29th of January. Then we had ridging in the eastern Pacific and a cold trough over the western USA in the second half of February. And you can see the high temps, big drop. Look at all those cold temps. Very cold last week of the month. Valentine's Day romantic, a little bit of touch of snow here and there. Around the fireplace. February, this is Valentine's Day, a little bit of snow here and there. We're flying through this because we've covered this storm in February in great detail in 2 meetings, so we're going to fly through this one. There was just a cold upper level troughing dropping through here around the 22nd, 23rd. Surface low drops down the coast. East wind starts blowing. It starts snowing. We think there'll be at least a little bit of snow. Again, the graph model, if you took that at face value, it's like, wow, we could get 4 inches of snow, and then it freezes up. And it doesn't get above freezing the next day. Look at those dew points in the teens. So, and we just talked about this last month right here. There were strong hints that something was up. But if you just take an ensemble of all the models, it's like, well, that one's showing 6 to 10 inches somewhere in the metro. But each model run was different. We covered this in great detail. Red, 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 nobody moved. But that was pretty at the beach. Look at that. Oh, poor, this is snow cover the next day, or 2 days after, or the next day, 2 days later. Oh, poor Canby. And boy, Malala is not the place to be when you want snow, I've noticed a lot of times. There's kind of that warm nose during the event. Most of the cold air was here, and then it finally slopped down. So, kids were sad there. This did a bunch of damage to my garden. I couldn't figure out till later in the spring when stuff didn't come back. I mean, some stuff that had made it like 10, 12 years. Everything came back in the end. It was interesting. I had a rose that suddenly popped up out of the ground, like in August. I thought it was dead for sure. That was harsh on our gardens. Cold March, much colder than normal, although the precip was near normal. That's when people are getting kind of frustrated. You know, like, oh man, it's raining. Is this ever going to end? Spring break started with high 47 when the kids were getting off the school bus on the 24th. Look at that snowpack. Great skiing. Coldest winter temperature was in February. Look at all those in February now. First 15 years of my career, it was almost never in February. Very interesting. That late season hard freeze, tough on the plants this year. Like I said, I had some damage that was not damaged in the past 10 years at least. Better measure of an Arctic blast when you have the really cold daytime highs. That just shows it a little bit better. Last 20 winters, look at that, 8 winters with some sort of snow. I know 2020, that was at the beginning of COVID. We had like a half inch on a Saturday morning. That barely counts. But the point is, that was the only time, this is the only time we've had this many winters with measurable snow. I should have changed that. No significant snowfalls on the top. And now we've gone 27 years. Every year, I've been saying this for years, 20 years. We're due for a huge windstorm, like a widespread event, like 1981 or 95 or 62. It was a rough east wind season. November, December, if you're exposed to the east wind, especially like inner east Portland all the way out to the mouth of the gorge and close to the Columbia River in Clark County. November, December, that was the most east wind days we'd had since 2006. Kind of backed off later in the winter. All right, so final winter thoughts. Models are great, but fewer, but still have issues mixing warmer air into easterly flow at the end of cold spells and ice storms here in the metro area. They, most of the time, do fine down in the valley. Silver Christmas was kind of fun. And I live out in Corbett, so it was all frozen and we were all iced in, so that was kind of fun. A lack of storms coming at us from a westerly direction. We didn't have any south wind events last winter. It was kind of quiet. And I know we are due for a snowless winter. I know there's no such thing as due, but it seems like eventually we're going to get a snowless winter here. And eventually we're going to get a big Arctic blast. And someday we'll get a widespread flood. And we'll see Mount Hood erupts before I retire. They're like, we talked about Mount Hood erupting again. A minor eruption, just fun, good from the camera. Okay, I don't want to miss summer. I bet I'm out of time. Summer, warmest May on record. Holy cow, remember this? See, we always forget this stuff, even I do. 4 days in the 90s in mid-May, and then in the 80s. How many days above 78 was that? That was almost a week and a half above 78. Yeah, warmest May on record. We have a lot of these warmest months on record, don't we? May 14th, high temps. 93 at Astoria, 97 at Florence. Easterly flow. And May was the warmest on record in all of Western Washington. So, summer started early, started dry, everybody started freaking out. Well, some people started freaking out about the fire season. It's going to be terrible. But remember, what's most important is, I'm preaching here, what happens during fire season. Do we get some cool spells or some clouds after lightning events? Or not such a big deal. Firefighters get ahead along things. It's not just about what happens in the spring. June was a little bit above average, and it's pretty warm. I mean, summer was fully on by the time we got to the third week of June. And that May heat, look at that, 6 records, 12, 13, 14, 15. 3 record highs, 3 record warm lows. Summer was another hot one. Man. In fact, if you look at this, somebody lost a kid. So here's something out there. Okay, so Western Valleys, third hottest here in the Western Valleys after 2015 and 2021. It was our 11th consecutive warm or hot summer. 2020 wasn't bad, but it was above average. Look at that. There's no other, I'm going to say, this is unprecedented as our climate warms. I mean, look at the change in summers compared to winter. It's a huge ramp up. Or does it suddenly drop down here next summer? I don't know. Right, it's warm, and hot. 26 days, our 30-year average, which is going up pretty quickly now. It's 14 point something days, we had 26. And you say, oh no, Marcus, all things have changed in the valley. Is it urban change and this and that? No, look at the coastal zones. Astoria Airport is not an urban center. It's right beside Young's Bay. But look at that. Look at all that warming there. Yeah. The data speaks for itself there. August 2023, that was a hot spell. I had another day off when there was a significant weather event right here. 108 degrees. I think we were in a theater. Yeah, hot stuff there. And August was the warmest on, it sounds ridiculous to say hottest on record at the coast, because I don't think it was actually hot, but it was warmest on record on the Washington and Oregon coast. August was. Oh, by the way, back up. It was our warmest month on record in Portland. And last August had been the warmest month on record. Now, Portland is an urban heat center. Clearly, we see the lows going up much faster than the highs because of all the urban growth. Okay, and that was August 13th, Sunday, Monday. Notice the valley. That's interesting. Salem and Eugene were a little cooler, right? There's a reason for that. Right here. Good thick smoke that day. So there's no reason that without the smoke, Salem and Eugene wouldn't have been up in the upper 100s as well. That 108, if not for the heat wave of 2021, would have been our new all-time high here in Portland. Yeah. Okay, this will go quick. You know, the adult Farmer's Almanac, we're not doing the Farmer's Almanac. I did that for years. It's in fact, when I was at the Fred Meyer and I bought the new one in August or September, they had it sitting there with all the magazines, you know, Brittany and whatever the other one. They had it sitting there with all those magazines, and I bought it, took it back, and somebody on one of those weather groups said, that's last year's forecast, and I realized they were still selling last year's. And I so I took it back, and the woman, she's like, well, it says 2023, and I go, yeah, but, and I had to explain to her like a nerd, like, well, that means the forecast for winter 2023-24 should be the 24 one. And she said, okay, I just they had the current one hidden way in the back. Oh, so misinformation being sent out. Hopefully they corrected that. So there's also Farmer's Almanac, we're not going to do that. AccuWeather, he's just one for kind of classic El Nino. Joe Bastardi, AccuWeather. We got Pete Parsons from ODF, real quick here, and Kelly Bayer, she's here. I got your name spelled out. Don't you hate when people misspell your name? Yeah, like Nelsen Sanders. I'd love to make sure. Okay, so Pete Parson, he's been here forever. He's working today, I think, so he couldn't present this. So he uses 3 analog years for his forecast. If I were just quiet, I suppose you could just read it yourselves. But I'm going to talk over it anyway. You can read it. He just thinks, he always says go big or go home, and he's going big for December. He thinks there's a decent chance of some significant Arctic outbreak. And even Weather Dan here confronted me in the bathroom. We were actually going. He said, because you know, I hope you're talking about Pete because he's going big for December. I remember 72. I think there's still like 12 or 13 record low temperatures that still sit on the PDX records for about 13 days. Really big freeze. So that's what he's going for. Everybody read that? That's his December. January, he's not that much going on. He thinks it's all about December, so we're going to see. And he only goes through January. So if you take November through January, he's going a little below average. Close to average precip. Kelly, here we go. Stop me if I'm misrepresenting you. I highlighted maybe something in November. A little teaser there. These news people. Weather. And then the rest of the winter kind of quiet. This is kind of classic El Nino, right? Yeah. Snowfall predictions there. I like how you put an April one in now versus 2 years ago. We're probably wait 60 years for that to happen. There you go. She's going big in January, 0 to 1 inch. Basically, I think Kelly's saying like, oh, okay, well, it's an El Nino winter. We'll see. I expect foggy mornings inversions. Under inversions a lot, I think, is what you're saying here. Maybe a lot of ridging. Yeah, I see plenty of chilly, dry, and cloudy days. There you go. Here's just 2 model forecasts, the Euro and the CanSIPS. This is Canadian. It has that classic El Nino signature. Right? Is that all I got? I think. Oh, wait. Okay, 3 things I think are maybe are important. The MEI. I don't know if you guys are touching. Are you guys touching on the MEI? Anybody?
I will.
You will. Okay. It's significantly different, right? It's very, as of right now, it's very weak. It claims it's more like an 86, 87, 91, 92, or like a 18, 19 event. We'll see. So it says it's a weaker El Nino based on that. And how does an El Nino behave if it's a whole bunch of warm water surrounded by average water, whereas this time we've got a whole bunch of warm water surrounded by lots of other warm water? Does that affect the circulation above it? We'll see. This may have changed. Does somebody have PDO in your presentation? Yeah. Okay. This is as of 2 weeks ago. It was a strongly cold PDO. We haven't had a strongly cold PDO and El Nino together since those years there, which are kind of interesting. Oh, those were interesting years. I'm not forecasting. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there like a bomb throw. like a meteorological drive-by. Okay, that's it. That's all.